Welcome into the Awesemo NASCAR Live Before Lock show as we get you ready for the season finale of NASCAR. The season is finally coming to end. We'll find out here just in a couple hours on who is going to be the season winner for 2021. Of course, we're going to break this race down for you over here the next hour. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. You got to check out the great prop contest they have over there as well. Of course, as always, here on the Awesemo NASCAR, where we're talking about strategy show live for lock. I am joined by Phil. Phil, always great. A rare Sunday during the football season. We get to do a show together. Just kind of works out. Bucks bye week, so we could do a show here on a Sunday. So I guess general thoughts heading into today's NASCAR finale.
I feel like everybody is kind of headed in the same direction, lineup construction wise, especially on DraftKings. You and I were just talking before we went on. Alex did a update to ownership, so if you've been looking at ownership, be sure to refresh that because Alex redid that, and that's really going to kind of be, I think, the clue about how you navigate these dominators up top, especially with ownership, just skewed so heavily towards one driver, and then what you're going to do to try to save some money down here at the bottom end. But it feels like a little bit of a chalky build, and in that case, we definitely need to start zigging.
And a little bit of a different story over on the FanDuel side of the equation when it comes to ownership. So whether you're playing on DraftKings, where you're playing on FanDuel, something kind of taking consideration. But of course, we always talk about roster construction, of how we're developing our lineups. And of course, that goes down to what's the Dominator build, in terms of, and then place differential type drivers. So let's start on the Dominator side of things. What is your recommendation on what we should be doing in terms of how many Dominators to put in our lineup?
Minimum DraftKings FanDuel, we are starting our lineups with 2. If you are playing cash today, it is definitely a minimum 2 Dominator build. You can expand that up to 3. Remember that the title of this race is called the Season Finale 500, but that 500 is in terms of kilometers. So this is only 312 miles, thus 312 laps. So we don't need to get that crazy with Dominators. It's at the most a 3 Dominator build. You can go back to this championship race last year. It was a 2 Dominator build with Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. You fast forward to the spring, it was what I would call a 2.5 Dominator build, but it was technically a 3. We had Denny Hamlin, who kind of snuck in, just basically doing enough with fastest laps and laps led to be considered a Dominator. But what he did compared to the top 2 drivers, it really wasn't kind of close. But that's really what you're looking at here, is that your lineups, I would not venture into the realm of a single Dominator build. But at the min, we're talking 2. At the max, we're talking 3.
I saw you earlier in our office hours channel, and I wanted to bring up something that kind of came up, a question about using Fantasy Cruncher in terms of projections versus ceiling. And I want you to kind of relate the answer, because I think it's a great topic for people who are using Fantasy Cruncher to help develop their lineups, in terms of, do you go with your projections or do you look at the ceiling?
Yeah, the person asked this morning, basically, should I be building with standard projections or with ceiling projections? And my answer was, in a race that's only got 312 laps, I'm looking more at standard projections. If this was like last week at Martinsville, where the scores can get pretty big because we have so many more Dominator points, then yeah, I'm probably building with ceiling projections in mind, especially with the idea that the punt plays could be viable. And of course, last week we had tons and tons of attrition, and still the punt plays couldn't find a way through. This week, we're expecting a clean race. Last year's championship race only had 1 actual caution, and that was just a single car spin some point during the second segment. Other than that, there was no other real life caution through that race. So because we're not expecting the punts to be able to advance their way up through attrition, then we really don't need to be looking at ceiling projections today. So that's what I'm working with, is those standard projections.
We just talked about the Dominator build, of it being a 2 Dominator build, but one of the questions already in chat was about, what do you think about a 1 Dominator build? I mean, is that a realistic option in terms of trying to be optimal?
It's something you can definitely do. And I mean, quite frankly, I think we can oddly make the case that it makes sense on the periphery. The two races that stick out to me that we had practice like we had on Saturday would be Nashville and Charlotte. Now uh, those were longer races, different sort of track, but the mitigating factor was that Larson had practice time, got his car right, and it was right throughout the entire race. I mean, he was nailed in. Generally, that first segment is when Cliff Daniels will have lots of feedback between himself and Kyle Larson, and get things kind of figured out about the adjustments they need to break going into the second segment, and then they generally do a pretty good job of laying down a pretty fast car. Well, at Charlotte and Nashville, all the adjustments that they needed to make, they had that information from practice. They started off super fast. And I mean, it was basically just Larson leading the bulk, like 75-80% of both of those races. So I don't have any lineups per se like that, but if you want to just do a single Dominator build, and I think really Larson's the only person that I would consider even doing that with, but if you want to go with that, I think that is technically on the board.
Sounds like JJT went with that theory yesterday. It didn't work out with him going with the one Dominator build. Of course, JJT, appreciate you checking in here to the Awesemo NASCAR Live Before Lock show. Of course, be sure to, if you're not subscribed, also right here on YouTube, you got to do that. We got a ton of great programming for you each and every day. Of course, coming up later on today, we'll get you ready for tonight's NBA slate, also Sunday night football. And if you're not a member of Awesemo Plus and you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, today's free premium data and tools over at awesemo.com is week 9 NFL ownership projections, NBA player rankings, and NHL ownership projections. It's got a ton of great content over there over at awesemo.com. So if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, that is our free premium data and tools over at awesemo.com. But let's get into the salaries here, Phil. So Phil, let's start off with the drivers that are 10K and above. And we've got 5 drivers in this tier this week. We got Kyle Larson starting on the pole, Denny Hamlin starting 6th, Chase Elliott starting 2nd, Mark Truex Jr. starting 12th, William Byron starting 3rd. So let's just start. Kyle Larson, I mean, he has been the story of 2021 here in NASCAR. Obviously, he's going to be a guy that everyone's going to be looking to pin in their lineups. I guess the first thing to me with Kyle Larson is, okay, A, start on the pole, potentially, getting out, getting those laps led right from the start. But I think also I look at a price tag of 11.5 on DraftKings, a price tag of 14.5 on FanDuel. If I'm just going, you know what, Kyle Larson's my core today, what's the rest of my lineup look like?
Well, considering that the bulk of your lineups are just going to be these 2 Dominator builds, I mean, you really can go anywhere with that secondary Dominator. So, I mean, the thing that I have been advising people, and this has kind of been the case going back to 2018, is that the rest of the field just kind of lets the final 4 guys just have at it. Like, they don't try to get caught up in leading the laps or trying to win the race. The last thing that you want to do is be like, let's just say you're Christopher Bell and you've got 2 teammates that are competing for the championship. The last thing that you want to do is get your hat thrown in the ring and you end up being the reason that one of your co-workers doesn't end up winning the championship, and your name is mud. Or you could be somebody doesn't even have a teammate in this final 4, like a Brad Keselowski or a Joey Logano. So what I'm advising most people do is that the core of your Dominators should be these final four championship contenders. These are the guys that since last year, 2019, 2018, these are the ones that are traditionally leading the most laps in this race, and that's what I'm expecting again in this event as well. So what you do with Larson, I mean, the easiest thing and the thing that makes the most sense is just tying him to his teammate, the guy that starts alongside him, who's got a pretty fast car. Like, Larson laid down pretty good numbers in practice, but when you look at Elliott, he laid down top 5 numbers, whether you're looking at short term or long run speed. And it makes the most sense that, after what Elliott did in this race last year, you look at Martinsville last weekend, leading like over half of the race. It just makes sense that these two are going to be the ones with the initial speed, the initial starting position that are going to be the contenders to lead the bulk of this race. Now, of course, you should have some lineups with Larson and Hamlin. You should have some lineups with Larson and Truex. And then if you're wanting to get different, because understand that the bulk of ownership is going to be tied up in these top four guys. Like that's where people are going to be looking for their Dominator core. So, if you want to just say that Larson's going to lead so much of this race that these top heavy guys, that what they do, it's not going to matter that much. Well, then we can start looking down the board to a Blaney, to a Keselowski, to a Logano, to a Bell as a kind of a secondary, cheaper option as a Dominator. But me, myself, when I was setting my Fantasy Cruncher guidelines, I told it, Larson, Hamlin, Elliott, Truex, I've got to have at least two of these guys. And if I end up with three, we'll make it work.
And that's one of the great things. When you open up those race sheets, you can see who Phil labels out as a Dominator, who labels out as a GPP play, also who labels out as a cash play as well. When we talk about the rest of these drivers in here, I mean, let's just say you've made that mindset of, all right, I'm going Kyle Larson, and maybe you don't want to pair him with Chase Elliott. Who is the next best option in terms of the drivers in this here? Is it Hamlin? Is it Truex Jr., or is it Byron?
Setting the table for Byron, like Byron's got amazing starting position, and he didn't have the speed quite that Larson and Elliott did, but I mean he still had the sixth fastest single lap. He had ranked eighth in the 5-lap average, eighth in the 10-lap average, and then eighth again in the 15-lap average. And I think Byron's smart enough to know just leave his two teammates alone. Just let them race, and he can kind of hang out in the top five all day. I am projecting him to kind of fall out by the end of the day, maybe like a sixth or a seventh place finish, but don't be surprised if he ends up in the top three by the end of the day. But as far as these final four contenders, if it isn't Elliott, then I'm looking at Hamlin. Consistently, Hamlin at these short, flat tracks in the 750 horsepower package, he's had either the fastest or the second fastest car. Last week, he didn't end up with a top two car for the first time all year. But remember, he failed technical inspection 3 times. He went to the back. So for half of the race, he was constantly fighting his way through traffic in a short one groove track before he finally made his way to the front. So that speed was impacted by where he started and having to fight the field. Whereas Larson and Elliott, they were just consistently out front all day. Truex is going to be the forgotten man in these four, but I mean, you've got to remember, Truex won this race late here in the spring. The stated goal of Truex and James Small has been this track, has been this setup. So once again, I really would not be surprised if Truex wins this race, but he doesn't end up optimal because he doesn't lead enough laps. Like he may very well end up the third most laps today, but it may not be enough scoring wise to make him an optimal play.
So I'm glad you brought up Martin Truex Jr. because I've got the race sheets open. I'm looking at the practice session. Are you concerned at what he pulled off yesterday in practice?
It is a bit alarming when you look at that 18th fastest single lap speed. Then you go to the 5-lap and it was 16, and then it gets a little bit better with a 6th place ranking there in the 10-lap. But what do you see when you get to that 15-lap average? And granted, there was only 12 of them that ran a 15-lap average. He was the fastest driver. So what does that tell us? Short run speed, it's not there. But the longer this race stays green, probably the better he's going to be versus the field. So what is Truex going to need? He's going to need long green flag runs, and that's what we're projecting this race to be. Because of this, it's going to be one of these things where when you're starting the race, Truex might actually lose a couple of positions to start off because of how bad this short run speed is. But don't be shocked that towards the end of the first segment, he's picked himself back and he's close to the top 5. And then he's legitimately a threat in that final segment when he can truly show off his green flag speed.
Of course, this is the also NASCAR Live for Lock shows to get you ready for today's season finale of the 2021 season of NASCAR. And of course, when you go over to Awesemo.com, you want to check out Odd Shopper, as Odd Shopper is changing the way you approach sports betting. Odd Shopper quickly delivers bets that make it right to your fingertips. I can tell you from personal experience, I love going to the Odd Shopper. I love looking at all those props, especially, every night I'm watching nothing but NBA from all around the league. And you got to check out the prop tools that we have over there, the projections that come straight from our DFS projections. They give you expected win percentage and return on investment included for NFL and NBA player props, which derive straight from our DFS projections. So it gives you the best edge out there. You got to check it out over at Awesemo.com. Right there, top of the screen, Odd Shopper. I'm just telling you, personal experience. It's a great tool. You got to check it out, Odd Shopper at Awesemo.com. We'll move over to tier number 2 salary. So that is the drivers who are in the 9K and 8K range over on DraftKings. So we've got Kyle Busch starting 13th, Ryan Blaney starting 4th, Kevin Harvick starting 9th, Brad Keselowski starting 11th, Joey Logano starting 10th, Christopher Bell starting 8th, Tyler Reddick starting 20th, Kurt Busch starting 5th, Alex Bowman starting 14th, and Eric Almirola starting 18th. So is there one driver in particular that you really feel sticks out in terms of the salary range?
There's 2 guys that have really kind of stuck out to me all week, and they have found their way into my lineups. The first guy is Joey Logano. I've been driving this train all week that if there's going to be one driver that isn't part of this championship 4 that is going to kind of disrupt the day and end up either leading the second most laps, if not just outright winning the race, because that kind of fits the persona of Joey Logano, just not give a flying flip. Logano, since 2019, they got rid of the high horsepower, high downforce, and went to low downforce in 2020. Since then, in 3 races, he's got a finishes of 1st, 3rd, and 2nd. He's led, I believe, the most laps during that time. Like, he has just been super consistent in that packet here at this track. When you look at this package, once again, he generally has a top 5 through 7 fast car, but look at these finishes. Last week at Martinsville was his first finish outside of the top 6 at short flat venues in the 750 horsepower package. So considering the short-term history here of Logano at Phoenix, it makes a lot of sense that he could sneak his way up front and just rattle off some laps led. And then we've got Eric Almirola. I've been hitting Almirola's number on Prize Picks. Like, it was set too low. I've got that paired with the over that hit on Austin Cindric from yesterday's Xfinity race. Believe Almirola's had really good numbers. If you've been whatever sports book you been looking at for top 10 numbers, like, they've all been really favorable. I think everything's just kind of lining up for Almirola to make a really good last impression here in this race. Remember, we don't know what his future is beyond this year because Stuart Haas hasn't announced anything. His main sponsor, Smithfield Foods, hasn't announced anything. So this is a really good chance for him to make one last one last impression on teams and sponsors going into this race. You look at everybody starting 14th or worse in the field. Almirola's got the most top 5 finishes, the most top 10 finishes out of all of these drivers since 2018. Almirola's had a bad year, but this sort of venue, think back to New Hampshire where he had the win, go back last week to Martinsville where he was hanging around the top 5 all day before, I believe, he finished 6th in that race. I believe, cash or GPP, he's a little priced up for people in cash games, but I played him, just show people the secret formula here. I played Almirola in my DraftKings cash games because I wanted to make it a priority to get to him because I believe he's got top 10, if not top 5 potential here. So those are 2 guys here on DraftKings. One's definitely underpriced as a potential secondary or even a third dominator. And Almirola is a guy that I think you can play whether in GPPs or cash games that could get you a potential top 5 today.
Ryan Blaney's starting 4. So obviously there's really not place differential there. And I can see what you have labeled out in the race sheets. Is this a potential buyer beware type situation?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, at 9,500, I think you really kind of need Blaney to be a basically a secondary dominator. Like if he was closer to his teammate Logano, then we might start talking about him being a potential, quasi, like if he just does enough with dominator points, then we can get by. But at that price point at 9,500, the tough thing is that I really don't foresee him leading that many laps today. He had good practice numbers. He was 7th in the single, 2nd in the 5 lap, and then he had the fastest 10 lap average. So I mean, Blaney could very well find himself to the front, just like we're projecting Logano to do. And if I look at the ownership, the updated ownership numbers here, like if you wanted to attach Blaney to a lineup as a secondary or third potential dominator, it's like some people are doing it, but it's definitely not a move that the bulk of the crowd is heading towards.
Alex Bowman started 14th, 8,200 over on DraftKings, 9,000 over on FanDuel. And I mentioned T Green in the YouTube chat saying, staying away from Bowman and Hamlin. These two are toxic right now. So what is your thought on Alex Bowman heading into today?
Yeah, and one of the odder things is that Harvick and Elliott are pitting next to each other, and Hamlin and Hamlin and Bowman are pitting next to each other. So it's like everybody who has potential bad blood is next to each other, but hopefully cooler heads will prevail. Like, it would be pretty foolish for both Harvick and Bowman to try to instigate anything. But I think Bowman's cool. It's Hamlin who might still have the beef, but Hamlin's got bigger fish to fry today. Basically, Bowman is a little bit more expensive version of Almirola without the place differential, but those if you look at his outright odds, I mean they're 3 times better than what Almirola is offering to you. So I mean the sharps are definitely anticipating Bowman to be a better option than Almirola himself. If you look at Bowman's Phoenix numbers, they're really they're not that fantastic. In fact, probably the best that Bowman has ran at Phoenix was back in 2016 when he was filling in for Dale Jr. When Dale was out for his concussion. But Bowman started on the pole in that race and like led half the event. Yeah. Since then, I mean, his best finishes have been 13th place finishes. And in this package, yes, he's got the victory last week at Martinsville, but for the most part, and then of course there's the late win at Richmond, but we're talking about 9th, 12th, 13th. I think that's what we're going to expect from Bowman again today, especially with 2 teammates racing for the championship. I think that he's going to end up parking himself somewhere between probably 8th to 12th, and that's what I'm expecting from him today.
You talked a moment ago about how much you do like Eric Almirola and how you're trying to put him in your line, especially on the cash side of it. One of the questions was asking about GPP in terms of Almirola and Bowman. Of course, there's 4 spots that are different by when it's only $100 price point difference. I mean, when we're talking GPPs, do you still favor Almirola more than you do favor Bowman?
Oh, okay. For if this is just a simple head-to-head pick, I could be swayed to go Bowman, and it's based off of those practice numbers. Like as much as I love Almirola, I can't sweep it under the rug that he ranked 21st in the single run, 21st in the 5-lap run, and then he moved it up to 10th when we're talking about the 10 lap average. But Bowman was 9th in the single lap run and then 5th in the 5-lap average. And of course, we're going to say that a Hendrick ran car is going to be better than what Stuart Haas is throwing out currently. So I hate to say it, as much as I love Almirola, if we're talking about just like a one-off, for a GPP and you've got the salary to get to either, it may be within your interest to get to Bowman because I mean, like I legitimately, and this is tough for me. I legitimately think that Almirola has top five potential,
Mm-hmm.
but if you run a simulation, 100 times, there's a good chance that Bowman is still out finishing Almirola.
When we look at the drivers that maybe people aren't getting to, the guy that sticks out is the man that's going to be starting fifth, and that is Kurt Busch at 8,400. We're just not seeing, people are jumping on him. Is there a case being made of maybe why we should look at Kurt Busch? I mean, starting fifth, so he's got to get some laps led here.
Yeah, the nice thing at least is that if people are wanting to pivot away from Reddick, who should carry a ton more ownership with that starting position, and then of course Bowman and Almirola both start at least 10 positions worse than Busch. So I mean, there's a reason that Busch is carrying this single-digit ownership, and I've got him listed as a GPP play. But the path that you need from Busch is either guys like Reddick and Bowman and Almirola, they don't pick up the place differential. They can just kind of hang out where they start. And legitimately, I think that is something that you might expect from Reddick. Reddick's finishes here, we've got some. The devil's in the details, but we do have finishes of 30, 30, 19, and 29 in 3 career starts here. And at shorter flat venues with the 750 horsepower package this season, 6 races, his average starting position is 14th compared to an average finish of 17th. So there's a good chance that Reddick doesn't really pick up that many spots. I think he's yet to finish on the lead lap in any of these races here at Phoenix. So there is the possibility that Reddick fails. And, we're not expecting that technically for Bowman and Almirola, but you never know. So if you're going to take, some dart shots on Busch, what do you need from him specifically? You need him to hold position. You need him to hang steady. And yeah, there are some top 10 finishes here riddled in his last 7 races here at Phoenix. But the last 3 races that resemble most closely what we're going to see today, it's been 15th, it's been 12th, and it's been 6th. So chances are that Busch is going to start 5th, and he's probably going to finish his day somewhere around 9th or 10th. But if these guys don't pick up place differential, then Busch could outscore them all just by sheer finishing position points.
You mentioned about Tyler Reddick. He started 20th. He's 8,500, so he's $100 more than Kurt Busch here is, and actually $200 less over on the FanDuel side of the equation. What do you like about Tyler today?
I've got him listed as a potential cash play, but quite frankly, if you're up this high at 8,500, like just either save your money, go down to Almirola, because chances are that you're not doing a 2 Dominator build plus Almirola plus Reddick. So either save your money, go down to Almirola, or find your way to get up to Logano, and that gives you a third potential dart as a Dominator. I'm not really that high on Reddick. We've all been, ever since Reddick's first race here, where he knocked off like 30 fastest laps, and that was even without him finishing the race. That was that race that he finished 33rd. We've all been kind of chasing this carrot with Reddick, with like this great potential that hasn't paid off. And I'm just going to say that based on these numbers in this package at the shorter, flatter venues, that the potential we've been chasing, it isn't there. Like Reddick in this type of race is most likely a 15th through a 20th place driver. And at 8,500, I don't want to pay that for a driver that's going to pick up maybe 5 spots at best.
You are watching the Awesemo NASCAR Live 4 Lock shows. We get you ready for today's NASCAR finale. And we are sponsored by Prize Picks, who have daily prop-based contests. There's no sharks, optimizers, or mass entries. 5-player lineups can net you up to 10 times your entry fee. And when you sign up, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for a first match deposit of up to $100. Use your knowledge on multiple sports with cross-sport entries. Download in the App Store on Google Play or play on PrizePicks.com. You got to use our free NFL and NBA player props tools to help you make the best decisions over there. As I was telling you about being over Odd Shopper, you take our projections. I'm telling you, it's going to work out well for you over there. I will tell you, I do it every day. Go over to NBA. I look and see what are some of those projections over there and see which ones that I do like there. So be sure to check out our sponsor, Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Be sure to use that promo code Awesemo as it'll match your first deposit up to $100. Move on to the tier 3 salary drivers. So this will be the drivers that are in the 7K and 6K range on DraftKings. So we got Matty D starting 15th, Ross Chastain starting 16th, Bubba Wallace 25th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 21st, Austin Dillon 23rd, Eric Jones 27th, Ryan Newman 19th, Daniel Suarez 17th, Cole Custer starting 7th, Chris Buescher starting 26th, Chase Briscoe starting 22nd, Corey LaJoie starting 24th. And I want to start off with Corey LaJoie as Stan asking, any interest in LaJoie as a punt play?
Well, we were just talking about drivers like Tyler Reddick that are going to start in a particular spot, and their upside is pretty much them just moving up, a couple of positions. I think that's what you're looking at with LaJoie. He's starting 24th today, which is a bit higher than I would have liked. Like legitimately, I think his peak is probably finishing where he starts today. You look at what he's done in this package in the 7 races. It's an average finish of 26.3, but that's compared to an average start of 30.5. So now we're moving him up 6 positions. His last 3 finishes here: 27th, 30, is that 38th? Yeah, God, and then 27th as well. I think if you're considering LaJoie as a punt, then you may as well just save more money, and we'll talk about those guys when we get to the next range. But LaJoie, he's a guy that you could consider in tournaments, like if you're not trying to have too much of the guys below him or the guys above him. But I'm really not that excited about trying to make LaJoie the preferred punt play of my lineups.
So are you excited about a Chris Buescher 6,400?
Oh baby. Busher's my guy this week. I mean, I put in, if people didn't read Gas and Go, I put he is the preferred cash play this week. Like, you start with your two Dominators, and then that third guy in is Chris Buescher. He's underpriced for what he's done at this track. If people pull up the race sheets, you're going to see a driver that has 6 straight top 20 finishes here. Yeah, 6 straight top 20s. That's not fantastic, but I mean, we're talking about a driver that raced in it was in the 30. It was either the 47 or 37 when he was with JTG Doherty, and then he's transitioned over here to Roush Fenway, and Roush Fenway should theoretically be better, but I mean, it's a lower mid-tier team these days. He's starting 26. This is a driver that should at the very least pick up 6 positions. He could pick up 8, 9, 10 more. What's his ceiling? His ceiling was last week. Raced his way into the top 10 at Martinsville, held his position, finished with a 9th place finish. So if he gives us his floor today, then he's probably finishing around 20th, 19th, 18th, and that's fine for cash. I mean, that is absolutely fine for cash on DraftKings or FanDuel. But if we get that ceiling game out of Buescher today, then he's going to end up with a top 15, maybe even a top 10 finish. And especially with this place differential and the salary, he could very well work his way into the optimal lineup.
A driver that people are turning to in this tier, he's starting 23rd. He's 7,300 over on DraftKings, also same price over on FanDuel, and that is Austin Dillon.
Yeah, it's funny looking here in this mid 7K range on DraftKings. We have 4 viable cash game options, place differential options for tournaments. You've got Bubba starting 25th at 77. Then you've got Spinhouse at 75. Then Dillon at 73, and Eric Jones at 71, starting 27th. So Dylan, I think, is the guy out of these four that I find myself preferring. Back-to-back top 20 finishes. He gives you that salary savings versus that of Stenhouse and Bubba. I like his upside just a bit more than Jones because of the equipment upgrade that you get in an RCR car versus Richard Petty Motorsports. Dylan's a guy that probably should be in your cash lineup. Like if you're having to pick between one of these four guys, I think that it is Dylan. But you may find yourself, if you're not going up to Eric Almirola, you may find yourself with two of these guys in your lineup. And in that case, I mean, it really is just kind of pick your flavor out of all of these guys. They might all end up with the same kind of scores by the end of the day, but I think I'm going to and I think this is what you can probably find the majority of my DraftKings lineups is that I opted for the guy that offers me place differential at a cheaper salary with a little bit of theoretical upside, and that's Austin Dillon.
Bubba Wallace starting 25th. He's 7,700 on DraftKings, 7,000 over FanDuel. And there was a comment in the YouTube chat about what he did during practice. So did you have any strong takeaways of what you saw in practice from Bubba and to potentially put him in some lineups today?
Well, I think that is something definitely to note is that out of these four guys, like Bubba's definitely got the fastest car according to practice. And I mean, that makes sense with this being technically the fifth Joe Gibbs car. But you look at Bubba's timing, this is even him going back to his days at Richard Petty, is 16th here in the spring, but then 15th and 19th when he was still racing for Richard Petty. And then if you go back to the fall 2018 race, he managed to race his way up into 10th. So Bubba could easily find his way with another top 15 finish today. So that's what I said. Like, if you don't want to spend that extra $400 to get up to Almirola, and instead you want to opt for Bubba with 7 more place differential at a cheaper price, while I don't think that Bubba has the upside of what Almirola could do today, he might have a bit of a safer floor because he has so much more place differential.
Now, when we look at the drivers that are 7,100, 6,900, 6,800, so that's Eric Jones starting 27th, Ryan Newman starting 19th, Daniel Suarez starting 17th. They're the drivers that no one seems to want to get to this week.
Right. Now, Newman is a bit of a tough sale because of this starting position, and I think DraftKings and probably FanDuel as well anticipated him starting a little bit further in the back, but he finds himself in 19th. If you look at the averages, they look fairly good, but you've got to see that you've got a couple, like 3 straight top 12 finishes from the spring of 2018 through the spring of 2019. And then it's slowly gotten worse. And in his last 2 races here, it's been 24th and 28th. So like that theoretical wall, like it seems that Newman has really kind of hit it here, and I'm anticipating him to go backwards. And Suarez is going to be the tough case here. Like, I want to find a way to get to Suarez because of what we're anticipating with ownership. Like Newman, people don't want to touch Newman with a 10-foot pole, but Suarez, like they might be willing to stare at him with a pair of binoculars. Suarez should make sense today, and Suarez is kind of like Eric Jones here. His best finishes came at this track when he was racing for Joe Gibbs, but since then it hasn't been that fantastic. And Suarez's practice numbers weren't that great either. Like there's part of me that wants to think that Suarez should continue to excel here, but the recent numbers and the practice numbers, they suggest, like, just like Newman, this is going to be a guy that's falling backwards.
Of course, one of the things we love to see after the race is over is those screenshots of those winning lineups. And to get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, first thing you got to be doing is you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. You can get that over at awesemo.com/avatar. Place at the top of the contest with over 5,000 contestants. Tweet your wins. So at Awesemo HOF, you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only 1 free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. And first off, got to give some kudos there to Valiant Spur. He took his shot at CSGO for the first time using all the tools we have over Awesemo.com. Has a great performance over there, taking down first place in that tournament. Also, kudos to the NBA contest that we are seeing in there, as well as NKKC finishing third in the NBA contest over there on Friday. Also, you had other people hitting on NBA as well. Aaron Holtz taking down third, taking down $1,000. And then, man, that stunner, man, he did absolutely incredible job over there, taking down over $100,000. So you want to get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. All you got to do is tweet your wins ass at Awesemo HOF, and you can win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, which of course gives you all the great tools and data we have over here at Awesemo.com. But of course, the key thing is you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. So Phil, it's that time of how low can we go? This will be the drivers that are underneath 6,000 on DraftKings. We got Ryan Priest, Michael McDowell, Justin Haley, Anthony Alfredo, BJ McLeod, David Starr, Josh Balicki, Timmy Hill, Cody Ware, Quinn Hoff, Garrett Smithley, and Joey Gase. So how low can we go this week?
This totally depends on how you see this race falling out. If you think that this is going to be a clean race, like we talked about last year's race, was you had the 2 segment breaks, and then you had I believe it was either Joey Gase or Cody Ware having a single. No, actually it was James Davison. Thinking back, it was James Davison had a single car spin. That was the only caution for the day. Somehow in that race, Brennan Poole ended up making the optimal lineup at 4,900, but he scored 21 points. He really didn't do that much. It was just a matter of he kind of allowed you to get the 2 top heavy dominators plus somebody else in there. Now you fast forward to the spring, James Davison made his way into the optimal lineup, but that was because we had a bit more attrition, and he legitimately raced his way from the 30s up to the high 20s. I'm going to say that this week, if you're going to play the likes of Balicki, McLeod, Ware, Houff, Smithley, Gase, then you are banking on there being late cautions. Like this race could it could go green for the first couple of segments, and then as the rubber hits the road and we're getting towards the end, that we could have multiple cautions, we could have multiple resets, drivers getting their way back on the lead lap. If there's cautions, then there should technically be drivers falling out of the race. If that's the scenario that you can foresee today, then you definitely get these guys in your lineups. And, we're talking about Smithley's the one that makes the most sense. He's the second cheapest driver on DraftKings at 4,600. He's got, outside of Timmy Hill, he's got the most place differential to pick up. And quite frankly, based on his Phoenix numbers and what he's done in this package, he should be a safe bet to get a 33rd or a 32nd place finish. But picking up 5 place differential and the finishing points associated with that, is that even going to be enough? So that's a bit of a stretch. On the flip side, if this is going to be a clean race, I really kind of think that it's going to be, and NASCAR is kind of going to keep that yellow flag in their back pocket unless we just have something that legitimately deserves a caution. Then these guys shouldn't find their way to being needed to produce a 3 dominator lineup. Now, yeah, if you're going to build some 3 dominator lineups with the top 4 guys, then you're probably going to have to punt down in this area. And you're just kind of hoping that these top 3 guys, they score so many points that you absolutely need one of these cheaper guys to make things work. But in my mind's eye, I think we're still going to be a 2 dominator build today. And in that case, you're not going to need these guys. And go back to last week, we had all the attrition that you could ever need, and those punt plays still couldn't move their way out of the 30s. So there's no guarantee, even if we have attrition today, that scenario is going to play itself out, and that a Houff, Ware, or Smithley is going to be needed.
Clint Wood, I appreciate you in the super chat. He's saying, in a cash lineup, can I get away with running Larson, Truex, Logano, Busher if it means pairing them with Priest and McDowell?
Yes. I think you can, if I think you can get away with that because you're including Logano into that scenario as a quasi dominator, somebody that should theoretically race his way to the front at some point and lead laps. Like you're sacrificing a potential place differential driver for the upside of throwing a third dart out there and nailing another dominator option. Now, having two guys below the 6K range is going to be a bit of a sweat for you. But I think because of what you're doing with Larson and Truex paired alongside with Logano, I think that can work.
Cole actually says, he goes, I'm looking and I actually have enough for Eric Jones.
Yeah, Eric Jones. I mean, if you can get to Eric Jones, that's cool. I will say the more that I stew on this, the idea of having a cash game lineup with both Priest and McDowell, it kind of does worry me a little bit. Like both of these guys, their theoretical, their upside is probably the same as their floor. So that does scare me a little bit. But I mean, that's definitely going to give you a unique build, and that's probably something that'll be nice to keep in your back pocket today for head-to-heads and cash games, is trying to avoid the majority chalk build that I'm anticipating.
Of course, if you do have any questions, line those up in our YouTube chat, also in our Discord chat. We'll get to those as well. Of course, come up here later today at 5 o'clock will be NBA Deeper Dive, as the guys will start getting you ready for tonight's NBA slate. Anthony saying best value play under 7,100 on DraftKings, and wondering, is it Ryan Priest?
It is Chris Buescher. To the moon. It is Chris Buescher. He is my like, if it's anybody under $7,100 this week, it's got to be Chris Buescher.
I mean, but obviously Buescher is the guy that everyone's looking to go to. If you're looking to try to separate yourself from the field, and you go, you know what, I don't want to go with the chalk of Chris Buescher, who is the next best option to go to?
Yeah. Trying to avoid the chalk. What a concept. I think
sometimes it happens.
Yes. Oh, you're talking to the chalk donkey here. I embrace chalk with both arms. If you're trying to get away from the chalk under 7,100, God, it might be Michael McDowell, and I say that with the utmost confidence.
You did not sound very confident. That the vocalness of it did not come with confidence.
Yeah, the octaves breaking gave it away. Okay, let's think about this for McDowell. He starts 28th, so he's got some place differential, and you say, okay, what is actually his potential here? Okay, finishes of 23rd in the spring, 23rd in this race last year, and then 16th in the spring race of 2020. So these last three races here in the high horsepower, low downforce package, I mean, you're getting probably a 20th place driver. So the practice numbers, they're not fantastic, but quite frankly, anybody that isn't, Lord, if you look at these practice numbers, the way that I've got everybody organized by salary tier, once you start getting under Cole, God, quite frankly, once you get under Eric Jones, these numbers are not inspiring. Like you could easily start talking yourself off of anybody because of these numbers in the 20s and 30s. But I think based off of these last three finishes, that there is some upside there with McDowell.
Next up, Nicholas asking, is Logano considered a dominator? I'll give you a short answer because I've got the race sheets in front of me. I know the answer is yes, but I'll let Phil explain why he is.
Yeah, Logano, this is going back 4 races. So this is going back to the last race that utilized the high horsepower, high downforce package, but that fall race of 2019, and this is going in order. He's led 93, 60, 125, 143 laps. His finishes have gone 9th, 1st, 3rd, and 2nd. I mean, he's been the most consistent driver at this track, bar none of everybody. If he could have found a way to win last week and sneak his way in here, he would have been a legitimate threat to win this race. So I've been highlighting him all week in articles, whether DFS or betting wise, that if somebody that isn't one of the final four contenders is going to lead laps at this race, my projection is that it's going to be Logano.
JJT saying, what do you think of a bill with Larson leading the first stage and Truex Jr. leading the rest and winning?
Yeah, that sounds like a lineup that probably I have and probably a lot of people have, with a Larson Truex build. Now, I will say that if Larson just leads the first segment, then that's going to be a little bit disappointing. But I mean, you're going to have Truex, and if he's going to lead that many laps, it's really not going to matter. You're going to have the top two dominators anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that's a lineup construction that I have in my builds, and don't be surprised if that's a pairing that a lot of people have.
Mark Truex Jr., bet MGM seeing plus 450 to win this race. Is that the guy you really look at from a betting aspect in terms of winning the race?
Oh, I even before practice, I've had my eyes on Larson, but I mean, betting a guy that's shorter than 20 to plus 200 here on BetGM, that's really never that enticing. I think it's been so long since it was only Friday morning that I wrote it, but it's been so long. When I wrote the Finish Line Best Bets article, I put down Logano at plus 2,000 as the bet to make for the outright winner today, and for Larson to still outfinish the rest of the final four. Now, whether that scenario comes true, I don't know, but at plus 450, there's still juice there. And once again, Truex just continues to kind of be the forgotten guy this week, whether we're talking about betting or DFS.
Of course, I did notice a lot of the questions you were getting today in office hours was, hey, Phil, who's going to win this thing?
Yeah. If people are rushing to their bookie this morning before they started doing their NFL research, but I mean, it's what makes sense. If you are going to bet one of these final four to win the championship, then you necessarily have to also bet them to win the race, because those two things go hand in hand today. Yeah. If one of these final four wins the race, they also win the championship.
Of course, race starts here in just about 38 minutes or so. Of course, appreciate everyone that tuned in here for Awesemo NASCAR Live Before Lock Show. This is a season finale for us. We'll be back in February when the races get back up and going. Phil, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Guys, thank you for an awesome season. These 36 weeks, they seem like they go by so stinking, so fast. It's been tons of Cup, Trucks, Xfinity slates. I'm definitely thankful to have a little off time, a little reprieve to reset my mind. But I mean, we'll be back at it here in February to break down this goofy exhibition race at the LA Coliseum.
You were telling me about that before the show started. Yeah, that should be interesting to see what that looks like there on television. But that's going to do it for us. Come up here at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Will be NBA Deeper Dives, guys, to get you ready for tonight's NBA slate. So hopefully everyone has a good Sunday, and I will talk to you later on this week for the MMA strategy. So have a good day, everybody. Talk to you soon.